Good afternoon, everybody. If you want to take your seats, if you're joining us for this session, and welcome to the last of the Travel Perspective sessions at this year's World Travel Market. Now, Travel Perspective is a social and digital consultancy working with travel and tourism organizations to help them share their amazing stories digitally, work collaboratively with travel influencers through video, images, and words, and drive new business. We've seen huge changes in the time that we've been running these sessions since 2010, which seems like prehistory, particularly with COVID. Now, obviously, the whole theme of WTM this year is the future of travel starts now. And in this session, we're going to be asking what those future travelers will look like and how to win their business as travel companies. Now, I'm really delighted to be joined by my panel today, and I'm particularly delighted that I'm completely outnumbered as a middle-aged white man. So I'm delighted to be joined by, at the far right, my far right, Erica Desanti, who's the International Expansion Director and co-founder of WeRoad. And then Perrin Hooper, who's a TikTok sensation, as you can see there, and freelance presenter and performer, although she doesn't like to be known as an influencer these days. You know. So, and then last but not least, Katie Gilson, Trends Manager of the market research company GWI, and you'll have seen their lovely adverts as you walked in on that digital billboard as you came in to World Travel Market today. If I could just ask each of you to take a moment to introduce yourselves. So, Katie, if you could start.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. Really great to be here today. Super excited. So my name's Katie. I'm Senior Trends Manager at GWI. So for those who don't know who we are an audience insights technology company, and we provide data to the world's leading brands, media organizations, and agencies around the globe. My role day-to-day involves being stuck in the numbers, making sense of what's happening around the world with consumer behavior, and really understanding the why behind that. So yeah, really excited to be here.
And as you can probably guess, she's from Ireland.
That's right, yes.
Next up, Erica, if you can just talk a little bit about yourself. I think there's going to be a little video that we're going to show as well that's about WeRoad.
So. That would be awesome. So hi everybody, I'm Erica Desanti and I'm WeRoad co-founder. So some pictures behind me show what we do with WeRoad. What we do is group travel experiences around the world. We were born in 2017, got through the pandemic safe and sound, bringing around 55,000 travelers all over the world in 5 different source markets. So we started it all in Italy, then expanded to Spain. Last year in the UK, a great year to start, like in Omicron, like a business, but that's perfectly fine. And this year we landed in Germany and France. We do operate trips in more than 100 destinations, and our whole business is built around communities and the links that they do with each other.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, Perrin. I think we're going to see something after you've spoken as well.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Perrin Hooper. I'm from Cornwall, and I'm a freelance presenter and performer, and an influencer as well, I guess you could say. I do all sorts of creative things. I live in Cornwall, so obviously massive thing for tourism down there. I absolutely love it. I do sort of kind of presenting jobs. I'm a trustee of Cornwall Pride, so I do a lot of work with the LGBTQ+ community down there, as well as the neurodiverse community. And I've got some of my TikToks, which I'm now thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe these are being shown to everybody. But these are some of the TikToks I have from my solo travels to New York and Amsterdam. Please excuse them a little bit.
It's Brooklyn time, baby. It's big, it's bold, it's boisterous, it's other adjectives beginning with B. My mummy doesn't know I vape. Love you. No locks. Oh, you mad lad. Oh, thank you. Oh, watch out, the boys were here. Ah, he scared me. Everybody knows there's a party at the end of the world. Hey, dude, pull my finger. Would you look at that? I'm lost in Brooklyn. Are these cauliflowers? Oh, good, I need some of those. I got a Brooklyn slice. It's a cute train, but I needed a bee. I'm just gonna get on. Ah, the beach. I feel so at home. I found this and I claimed it. Ooh, Wonky Nails. That's my new stage name. Rock on, dude. I'm sure Poseidon's loving it. Close Coney Island kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'm not gonna lie. Brooklyn, baby, you didn't disappoint. 10 out of 10, would do again. Loved it. Amazing. I'm in Amsterdam. Let's go. Oh, my goodness. It's like the stampede in The Lion King.
It's so pretty.
Die, mortal! Hey, we're doing a Rontevart.
Yeah, we are.
Winning the race. Swan, 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 swan. They call this Amsterdam's false teeth. Hey. Oh, nice trick, that's not a building. That means happy through merit in Latin, which is what I like to be. So many rectangles. Peekaboo! I want to be one with the pigeons like these people. Shop and don't you even think about stopping. Oh. Get in, loser, we're going shopping. I don't like it. Work those clogs, baby. Oh, yeah. He's like Spider-Man. Ah. Ah.
Love that.
I'm just out of interest, how many followers do you have on TikTok?
I currently have, I think it's 401,000, I think.
Just
I don't know, I haven't checked.
401,000.
Yeah,
So
401.
she's worried about, they're worried about, 200 people seeing
Yeah,
those. So.
it's just, I wasn't expecting those silly little
Yeah.
videos to be shown on the World Travel Market.
And if you're on TikTok, feel free to follow them, but also their mum as well, who's a dog trainer. Fantastic. We were just looking at it in the speakers lounge before. So yeah, just let's get down to business now and find out who these future travelers are going to be. Erica, maybe we could start with you. Do you think people are acting now when it comes to travel, following the pandemic, perhaps like treating themselves more, or they've saved up a lot of money and splurging it on a big holiday?
Yes, revenge travel is a thing, definitely. So it started like as a concept during the pandemic, but it actually is real. We, as a business, also tripled in volumes if compared to the pre-pandemic moment. But what I think happened during the pandemic is that the millennial generation, that is the one that we are catering as a business with, We Road, has literally let's say, understood the importance of travels in their lives and how fundamental it is within, the daily purchase that you could be doing during your life, right? So, especially in these days that are tough days, people give up to a lot of things, but travel is not one of the things that they're giving up. Luckily for us, obviously working in this industry, and we've seen it like walking down the road here at WTM. So definitely revenge travel is a thing and is rebounding, and we're seeing it constantly in our daily businesses. And not only for millennials, but also for Gen Zers, right? So because they're getting into the age span where it's interesting to start traveling, not only like domestic, but also long distance. So taking the leap and going on an adventure trip with us, but also with a lot of like tour operators. And it's definitely, finally, I would say, also after 2 tough years that we've all been through, come to a great start.
And just sort of seeing some of the destinations you had in your video there, it looked fantastic, and it makes me want to travel always. But are there particular destinations or types of adventure that are proving particularly popular now that we're coming out of COVID, hopefully?
Yes, definitely. And actually, the geography of travel has changed if compared to 2019. So I think that millennial generations discovered also more short, medium distance destinations as well, rather than just long distance ones, even though Brits love Mexico. I don't know what happens in Mexico, but everybody wants to go to Mexico. But I would say that also in terms of geography, the last region to rebound after the pandemic was Southeast Asia. So luckily, also with Japan reopening since few months now in, the whole Southeast Asia part of the world is like rebounding again. But it was the latest one. Whereas for us, especially for our Southern European markets, like the Italian and Spanish one, that was the first thing like millennials would jump on a plane and go to with a backpack on their shoulder, right? So that has changed slightly what they used to do. So, for example, this year we had a higher percentage in trips in Europe. So people start rediscovering areas of Europe that they've never discovered before so deeply, like the Balkans, for example, for the Northern European markets as well, or the Nordics. So everybody's hunting for the Northern Lights, which is an amazing thing to witness. So this is also super popular with our trips.
Well, what about the climate crisis as well? Because obviously, that's been around for a long time, but people may be thinking more about that than they did before. Are they wanting you to make sure you're, net zero, and that
Yep.
you're looking for destinations and trips that have less impact on the environment?
Yes, definitely. And also, domestic trip has become a thing, also for people that would have opted always for long distance trips instead. And for example, giving the context of the pandemic as an example, we were able to cater this need and develop completely a new set of product focused on Italy and focused on Spain that were our only two markets. And we didn't get rid of the job done because we thought that was part of the travel habits of our generations and how it would have developed after the pandemic. So we kept the best itineraries, and right now we're including them in our, I would say, normal medium-long distance destination set that we normally have. Also, another thing that I think our generation is very much doing with regards to where to travel to in a more conscious way, they're lengthening their stay to make the most out of it. So I think most of our tour operators here in WTM have seen that, yes, people join their tours, but then they stay in the destination longer to also have a positive impact, not only in terms of the local economies, but also in the way in which they explore whole continents there. So they stay, they work remotely for a while, maybe moving around the place that they visited with a trip, like Bali or Indonesia, or maybe Cuba, which also is in a super tough situation. So they're more conscious also about that and making the most of the moves that they do around the world. And we're moving into that direction as a business to try and facilitate that along with our local partners and DMCs.
Katie, I mean, you've seen the data, obviously, from GWI. I mean, what can you tell us about how things have changed?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I echo a lot of what Erica's just talked about. We are definitely seeing a huge trend towards making the most of now. I think post-pandemic, people have realized how time is precious, how time is short, and pent-up travel demand is very much still there. So looking at the research, we can see that the number who have taken and purchased a vacation or travel tickets in the past 3 to 6 months has actually increased by 19% since the middle of last year. So it's definitely changing a lot. And we know that consumers, despite the price of living and the cost of living and inflation impacting people's spend, we know that consumers will make room for their must-have treats, and travel is one of those things. It's actually something that we've looked at in our annual trends report. So every year, the trends team in our company releases an annual trends report, which looks at the trends to know for the year ahead. And one of those ones that we explored was around luxury spending and where consumers' treat spend might be going. And we kind of dug into the numbers, and travel is a huge part of that. It is something that consumers prioritize. When we asked consumers what would make you happier in the future, what would bring you more joy, in the UK, the top answer out of a list of like 10 options was taking more trips and traveling more. So we know how much value there is for travel in consumers' lives. And I think it's important as well to touch on the importance of wellness, the wellness aspect of travel, with the amount of crises that people have faced over the past X amount of years. And this is continuing now with the cost of living. Travel is an outlet, and people aren't going to shy away from doing that. Even with the cost of living, a lot of people will be making space for those treats.
Perrin, I mean, you're not in the travel industry as such, but can you tell us about how the pandemic was for you, and now that you've come out of that, are you feeling that you want to travel more and do more and experience more?
100%. So I know that as soon as I was able to, I flew straight to Canada. I was gone as soon as the rules were chilled out a little bit. I was off and I had a lovely time. I think it's one of those things of like Katie was saying, after you've been cooped up for so long, I know that a lot of my generation, as a Gen Z person myself, we were itching to get some sort of positivity back and get out and feel the world again. And I think that there's a lot of young people who really, really want to travel. And if anything, the pandemic made people even more keen to get out there. I know it did for me. And I think in terms of even with the cost of living going up and things, you're completely right in saying that it's one of those things that people will still treat themselves to. And I know that I can't afford a holiday, but I'm always looking for one, always, all the time. And I think it's one of those things also, just like touching on the climate stuff that we were talking about. I know that it's a massive priority for people of my generation as well, to be looking at things like how you can, I know there's schemes where you can offset your carbon footprint on flights and things like this. And those types of schemes go a really, really long way towards kind of sustainable travel. And I know that companies that I see promoting this type of stuff, I'm on it, and I know that all my friends would be quite happy to pay an extra $5, an extra $10 to their flight ticket to offset their carbon footprint and things like this. So yeah, I love traveling, I love going places, and yeah, the pandemic, 100%, I was gone.
I wonder if we could talk about solo travel, because I know from all of the trends reports we've been looking at recently, there's been a huge increase in that, and We Road, I mean, clearly it's, there are a lot of solo travelers who go on that. And have you noticed that? Has there been an increase in that?
Yes, definitely. And it's the backbone of our business at the same time, because our generation is super transparent and confident in being solo, also in life. Let's say statistics from Tinder, 72% of people are super happy of being single and independent and love the flexibility that comes along with it, because we're fully owning our own lives and our own experiences, especially in terms of travel. On top of that, people that travel with us in group experiences, they're on the lookout for new friends. So being solo, it's not, let's say, socially bad, because this something is that's also unfortunately perceived, especially in Southern European cultures, but it's rather you being open to get in contact with people, cultures, and literally build new connections that are there to last. So what we do with We Road, it's trying to literally try and find new friends with travel. So travels for us becomes a mean to an end, and the end, that's empowering society to reconnect with each other, especially after the pandemic. So it's packed with people that have bucket lists that had like been, collecting during the pandemic, and right now they're on the ground looking for friends, because they only had the ones like connected online to chat to, and new destinations that they were dreaming about during the pandemic. And also, I think that with the travel industry at large, we have a huge responsibility in trying to reconnect society together. So definitely, I would say that solo traveling is a massive, massive trend. And we're capturing it not as a business opportunity, but rather also as a social mission somehow.
Perrin, a lot of your travel is solo travel. I know that's something that you're passionate about, and your friends presumably as well.
Yes, I absolutely love a solo trip. In fact, I take a solo trip over a group trip any day, any day. For me, my first solo trip was when I was 18. I went to New York alone. I'd never been on a plane. I thought, you know what? Yeah, I can totally do this. I booked it a week in advance. Didn't even think. Just went and did it. And there's a real freedom to it. And I've started talking about it with my friends and things like this. I was very lucky that I was home educated, so I've been traveling alone up to London since I was 13. So it's something that Mum likes to say was part of my home education. And it allows a freedom that a group trip doesn't. You get to pick your own things that you get to do. You get to be independent. And I think for a lot of young people, again, going back to the pandemic, we feel like a lot of our independence was taken away from us, and we had to rely on so many other things. A solo trip just reinforces that feeling of adultness, I want to say. And I love it. I love not having to decide what somebody else wants to do on the day. If I want to spend 5 hours in the museum, I'm going to spend 5 hours in the museum, and nobody can stop me. And touching what Erica said as well, I think when you go for a solo trip, you have to meet new people, and you have to really push yourself and put yourself out there. And I know for someone like me, and a lot of people within my generation, we seem to really struggle with mental health issues, particularly anxiety and depression. And a solo trip, I almost see it as a self-care thing. It's a way to grow yourself. And I know that when I went to New York, I was an anxious mess. And I came back from that solo trip alone, having to figure out the airport by myself, having to navigate the city by myself, the subway, all of these things. I came back a completely different person to the person I left as, and my confidence and my general anxiety was so much better for pushing myself in a solo adventure. And I think that a lot of people, and I say it to all my friends, going on a solo trip will change you as a person. You will meet people that you would never have met if you were with a group. You probably wouldn't have ever approached that person. But when you're alone, somebody comes and sits next to you and you have a chat to them. And it's a really refreshing experience that I think a lot of young people, and I know a lot of people, and my friends and the people I talk to, are very, very keen to go for. Very keen.
Katie, I was going to ask you, Gen Z and their successor, Gen Alpha, seems to have a new generation all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, do we need to think differently for those? I mean, I don't know. I know you've got some statistics that we were going to see later, but I know some of that's up on your slide there, so maybe we can have that slide up now if people can see that on the screen in a moment. But yeah, so Gen Z, Gen Alpha?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We definitely have to think about them in a very different way. I mean, it's the same thing across all generations. Every generation will have their own unique values, their unique traits, their unique cultural identities. And I think it's very important as a brand or a marketer to make sure you don't think about them as just young people, because there will be distinctions. In our research, we found that there are similarities. So for example, and this might be something that you've come across as well, is Gen Z are leaning more towards real content on social media, the need for less filters, and more of a messier vibe, I'd say. And we can see in our research for kids, Gen Alpha are like following suit. We can see as well, like they have strong social values, which again are tied closely to how Gen Z feel about the world as well. So there's definitely lots of similarities, but Gen Alpha will be very much shaped by the world around them, by the people they're spending time with, by the media they consume. If I think about when I was younger, I'm a millennial, but when I was younger and I used social media, I used MySpace, I used Bebo, and then I used Facebook, right? And then at that time, the norm was to post photos and post opinion pieces. It was very text-based, right? And people overshared, and there was a lot of that. Gen Z are more kind of into the TikTok world now, right? And short form video content, that's very much a thing for them, and that's shaped who they are and how they perceive the world around them. For Gen Alpha, we're going to see something quite similar, where when newer technologies come along, whether it's blockchain, whether it's crypto, the metaverse at some point, whatever that will look like, who knows? But they will be shaped more by what they're consuming, and that will make them, quite different to the generations that's come before them. So similarities and crossovers, yes, but very, very important to treat them as their own group, their own individuals.
Erica, I mean, do you sort of segment your offering for things like Gen Z, or is it really sort of broad how you market those things, and what's different?
Well, actually, we experiment a lot. So we love, as a business, like being out there experimenting new social media. And we right now are targeting the Gen Z and the millennial generation, more or less, because our trips are meant for people between 25 and 49 years old. But generations get older and older, and socials get new. And as a business, we need to keep up with time. So as my fellow panelists said, you literally need to find the right means of communication to cater the right target. And in this case, we are on TikTok. So we try our way through TikTok, understanding how to use it properly to showcase our trips in the best way and keep people engaged of every single generations that we want to cater. We test out Be Real, we test out Snapchat, we test out everything. And in doing that, what we do is trying to onboard in the team people that belong to the generations, giving them power, the freedom, and the eagerness and the fun also of testing out new things. So we don't put boundaries there, but we let content and engagement flow, and we just test. We're very empirical in that. So yes, we do rely on data, but at the same time, we love to test and literally also feel if some of our social media assets work better with the generations we're talking to. Because as a business, but at the same time as a community, what we want to do most and foremost is engage people with our content. So yes, we are a tour operator, but at the same time, we want to build this environment, this safe environment where people can start talking about trips and share experiences, but can get literally a lot of fun looking at the content we make and keep up with the times a bit.
So you mentioned Be Real there, and I mean, yet another new platform. Is that working for you? I mean, I can't imagine how you would do that to
yes,
sell a
I
holiday.
mentioned Be Real because my co-founder is just testing it out himself, trying to figure out what the hell is this? And this is the latest part of the target, So we're not there yet, but that's something that we love doing, like literally in the team. So did you test it? Okay, this worked. Oh, this doesn't work. Looks weird. Okay, let's change. But right now we in this approach, let's say we are testing heavily TikTok, and also in terms of investment, we decided to switch some of the investments in TikTok, which was more efficient to attract our target. And the coolest bit is that we do operate with different source markets. So I can tell you that Italians behave completely different from UK people, or UK people you find trends that in the Spanish market you don't even imagine. So by working in these different environments, also from a marketing perspective, is super, super exciting. And you literally can have like, what's going to happen next in Italy, because it's already happening here in the UK. So we're trying to get the most out of this like mutual wave.
Yeah, Perrin, I wanted to talk to you about, do you think travel companies need to do things differently to attract you, and also where you get your inspiration from, where to go on holiday?
It's definitely one of those things of the way social media is being used, like you said, is changing. It's not really Facebook anymore. It's not really, people my age are not looking for a shiny advert. They're not looking for something that's incredibly well made, that's perfectly polished. They're looking for content that is real. They're looking for content that is snappy and short and quickly consumable, because that seems to be where it's going. And as somebody who uses TikTok as their kind of main platform, we want stuff like, for example, Ryanair, they have smashed their social media. They've absolutely smashed their TikTok. They have a perfect mixture of original content and trends. And my biggest advice to any sort of companies who are looking to come on to TikTok and really, really attract those young people is to talk to young people. Have your young people run your social media. If you want to be attracting that, you need people who know how it goes. And I think in terms of, from my perspective, how travel companies should be looking at our kind of my generation and generation below me. Within our generation, it's much more open in terms of talking about LGBTQ+ struggles, as well as neurodiverse and mental health struggles. I think this is something that my generation is extremely passionate about and speak about a lot. And I think so often this can sometimes scare companies who are, companies who have been established for a very long time. They look at all the LGBTQ stuff and they look at all the mental health stuff and think, oh my gosh, where do we start? What do we do? How do we not offend anybody? I can't get my head around this. And all I want to say is chill. It's okay. It's all right. There's really, really small changes that can be made within, airline companies, travel companies, hotels, businesses, anything sort of travel-wise. In terms of LGBTQ changes that could be made, it's sometimes literally as simple as having an extra option instead of Miss or Mr. or anything. It's having a neutral option, having the MX option, which I know not everybody has heard of, but there is an option for MX for non-binary people like myself. It's simply having something like that on your form instead of just the kind of what we've always had. It can completely change your market. For somebody like me, if I saw that on a form when I was going to book a holiday, I would instantly feel way more encouraged to book with that person. I would feel much more comfortable through the whole process of, going on my holiday. I know that that's a safe space that I can be in, because it's quite scary sometimes as an LGBTQ+ person to travel. You never quite know how you're going to be received. And so small, tiny changes like that within your company, just changing one thing on a form, putting a tiny, weeny little, rainbow flag somewhere within your marketing can make a humongous difference in the amount of people you could be bringing in to your consumerism. And the same kind of goes for, sorry, I'm waffling, but the same kind of goes for the neurodiverse communities and mental health communities. Having very, very small things within your business that support those people. Just advertising that actually in your airport you've got a safe space, you've got a quiet space, that your staff are trained in how to handle, sort of mental health struggles or breakdowns. Just knowing these things could attract so many young people to your businesses. And generally, the world's getting there, and a lot of places I am already seeing these things, but again, I just think that people think that there have to be these giant changes for LGBTQ plus people, and these giant changes to support people, and in reality, it's actually really, really small things. And my best advice, again, is to seek out the people who are within the neurodiverse community and are struggling with mental health issues and are LGBTQ plus, and ask them what they would like to see and start implementing that in, and don't be scared to ask questions. Our generation likes to talk, as I can attest to. We like to talk, and do you know what? I just encourage you to go and speak to the people who you want to attract. That's the best thing you can do.
Have you seen the Virgin advert, the recent one?
Yes.
So what do you think of that?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Again, it's one of those things of, I now feel, as a non-binary person, I feel like, this is an airline that I know that I can present myself however I'd like to present myself, and I'm not going to be judged. I don't have any fear when I'm traveling. I know that the staff members will accept me. I don't have to worry about it. And it makes a humongous difference. And I think sometimes companies are scared to put themselves out there like that, like Virgin did, because they're worried, well, what if we put off a load of people? And I just want to say to them, but the people that you then attract completely offsets the handful of people that these days aren't particularly happy with this type of stuff. It will work in your favor. And with the way that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going, I know my younger siblings, they're 7 and 10, they've grown up with me as a trans person, and they've never known any different to having an LGBTQ person. So generally, the younger generations are all coming up this way. So if you want to be attracting them, you're going to need to start changing your business. That's just how it's got to go. That's kind of the long and thick of it,
Sorry to stay with you again, but I mean, often you get these brands who just sort of like tokenism in their adverts, and they've got like a diverse picture of this sort of thing. I mean, do you think there's an element of people sort of jumping on the bandwagon at all?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's definitely about intention. And the thing is most people who are deep within the LGBTQ plus community, like me, you can tell when the intention is good, and you can tell when it's for marketing, you can tell when it's for profit. Generally, when I saw like the Virgin one, I was genuinely really, really moved by it. I thought, this is great. This wasn't just a ploy. This was something where they are genuinely being able to allow people to express their gender in a better way. However, I do think that you've got to make sure that when you are changing your things, you're not just doing it for profit. You are genuinely doing it because you want to make people feel more safe within your company and things like this. But like I said, usually we can tell the tone. We can tell the tone. And for whatever happens, don't just slap a rainbow on it and say that it's fine. Make sure that you've kind of backed that up a little bit, and you've got somewhere in your policies, yeah, we're all good with this. You just got to back your stuff up. Just back it up.
Great. We'll come to some questions from the audience in a minute. I'm sure people want to grill them all. But Katie, I know that we saw some of that research before. I don't know if we can bring that up again, but talking about the different generations and some of those drivers for purchasing. So can we get that one up again on the screen, guys? Can you see it there?
Not yet. No. There we
can see
go.
it,
Yeah,
there we go.
no.
So yeah, if you can talk about
Yeah, of
some of the
course.
differences between those, about the baby boomers. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's so many differences when it comes to generational habits and travel. I think one of the key ones, especially in today's world, is like reassurance is absolutely key. We can see here when we're looking at the percentage of vacationers who say these are the important factors if they were to book a trip tomorrow, and free cancellation and rebooking comes out on top. It's important for all age groups, but it's really important for older consumers. And I think it makes sense why, if you think about it. We've faced a lot of restrictions during the pandemic. Now the cost of living crisis is, causing people to feel more cautious. The airport chaos during the summer caused people to feel more wary. I know I felt that way. I was like, is it
scary.
risky to go to an airport? And I think, for brands who are looking to engage with different groups, one of the common factors I think that consumers are looking for is like free cancellation, rebooking. It's becoming more of a must-have nowadays, and something that many brands are actually keeping post-pandemic, and something that I think will continue. And I think it's really important when it comes to building trust, especially during these times. And then obviously we can see many other differences in how consumers travel and what they value from brands. So if we look at Gen Z, they're more inclined to say they want to travel abroad to experience a new culture, to meet new people, for like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So any brand that can kind of lean on the adventure side of travel for that group will definitely kind of resonate and land quite well. For millennials like myself, we're more likely, according to our research, to want to travel to experience and try new food and to treat themselves. So these are kind of the more treat yourself generation, I would say, who are more willing to push the boat out when it comes to travel, and more willing to splurge on certain aspects of their vacation. And then when it comes to older consumers, they are a lot more price conscious and price aware. So that kind of comes up a lot through our travel research. We see price and value is very important. Obviously, during these times, as costs rise for brands too, it's not always possible to compete on price. It can be quite a difficult thing to do. So anything that, if you lean back on what they value in other areas, like reassurance from, through free cancellation and rebooking and things like that, and convenience, making it easy for them and making it really seamless, the user journey really seamless, that's also really key. So there are things that brands can do to engage groups, even if competing on cost isn't possible right now. But yeah, I think really focusing on reassurance right now is key, especially as we don't know what's going to happen over the next year, right? There's so much uncertainty that lies ahead. It feels like we're moving from one crisis to the other. And I think consumers are kind of moving with the times and expecting brands to almost offer them like a safety blanket. And free cancellation, rebooking, makes them feel like that. So it makes them feel more confident and comfortable. And I think it's one of the things that brands can explore when it comes to engaging people.
Great. We've got about 8 minutes left, but I wanted to open up the floor. We've got some microphones moving around from the back. There's a gentleman, I think, up here. If you can just say who you are and then pose your question.
Hi, my name's Luke Hughes. I'm a business transformation consultant with Assist Digital. I work quite heavily in the travel sector. What I was going to ask was, we talked a lot about kind of an experience as a commodity, and I think, Erica, your business is quite heavily set up around that. Do we see, probably a question to all of the board, do we see the experience as a commodity to be a really big trend in the travel sector that maybe will kind of usurp and overtake some of the kind of historical big players, or do we maybe see it as more of a niche within the wider travel market?
Yeah, I can jump in the answer.
Yeah.
I think that the whole travel sector should start talking about experiences, because for us, for example, group travels is not like a sad, gloomy way of traveling around on a budget, but it's rather a way I enter in contact with people, and I enter in contact with people thanks to transformative experience, and that's the key to the success. So it's not a bunch of tour operator services packaged together, but it's rather how do I package these services together so that the experience becomes a life-changing one, right? So that's our whole product team is called experience team as well, right? So because the focus is literally on making the trip, the tour package, as unsexy as it could sound, the best experience in their lives. And in order to do this, what we do is also take out pieces of the tour package to enable the group to form together the best experience for the people that are traveling together. And we have one person that is the travel coordinator, which is a travel buddy rather than a tour guide that has just the focus on the tour dynamics and the group dynamics most and foremost. And this enables the experience to become even more important than anything else, and the group experience being the first in people's life and making it memorable. So to answer shortly, I think definitely yes, and we all should start switching to talking about experiences.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any hands up. Just think on and ask a few more in a minute. But Erica, I was just going to ask you about backpacking because I mean that's been popular ever since mass tourism started. Sort of back in the 1960s, people have always been backpacking. Are there any signs that that's sort of waning, that appetite to go
still
backpacking?
surviving, but I think it's changed a bit in form because when I was a kid and I thought about backpacking, I imagined myself like in a gap year with my backpack on a budget, touring around Southeast Asia. That was my image of backpacking, but I think that thanks to group travel adventures, it has become more mainstream, and I don't see it as a, let's say, negative thing, but rather as a positive one, because what we're doing with group travel adventures is literally taking people outside of their comfort zone, people that they've packed trolleys before and other sort of luggage, literally figuring out, okay, how am I supposed to survive in Southeast Asia with this backpack on, like for 15 days? This seems stupid, but at the end of the day, it's putting people outside of their comfort zone to get in contact with the other group members. So it's also, like on a social side, it's very intense, as you were discussing before, Perrin, but it's very much enriching. So I see backpacking as a transformative part of the experience itself. So like the act of packing a backpack.
Great. Katie, I know that you don't just collect data on travel and intentions and purchasing behavior, but you look at more general data. I mean, can you use that to sort of infer things like, if people have got, if they own a Land Rover, for example, I mean, does that mean that they're more likely to buy a particular type of holiday? I mean, can you use your data in that way to sort of segment people?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like you can, there's so much endless possibilities when it comes to using our research, and we can segment by different profiles, different types of travelers. So it's not just like a generational or income or age breakdown. You can really dive into the nuances of each traveler, whether they like to go sightseeing and kind of how they're different, or if you're more of a nature type of vacationer, how they're different, and then how each type of traveler might, approach the purchase journey. So what kind of sources they'd lean on more, and it really helps brands to get a more detailed and nuanced view of each type of consumer group, depending on who you're targeting. And then we can also get a good view of their purchase journey, both from like the research stage and inspiration stage, all the way through to who they use to book their next trip. So it's a very holistic view of the travel journey, but also consumer behavior generally. We touch on things like social media, why they use social media, attitudes and lifestyle, interests, and just to really get a good 360-degree view of consumers on a very nuanced and detailed view. So yeah, there's endless possibilities.
I mean, do you think travel companies are using data well, generally?
Some are, yeah. We work with a lot of travel providers, definitely. Some could probably do with some more. I think definitely rooting it in data and consumers' opinions is very important. So not going by what of course going by feeling is important and using your intuition, but also backing it up, kind of similar to what you said, Perrin, with the consumer view themselves. And really kind of collecting that across a global view is really important. So not just looking at one market, looking at, we cover 48 markets, soon to be 50 in our core survey. So it allows us to get a global view of consumers, not just in one specific country. So we have more of a harmonized view of consumers around the world, essentially. And I think a lot of brands could do with honing in on that a bit more and using that to guide their decision making.
Perrin, I wanted to talk about Cornwall. You're from St Austell in Cornwall, and I know from TikTok that you love Cornwall. Have they ever approached you, like the tourist board, to do something for them?
not quite yet. Not quite yet. Funny you ask, actually. I've been invited to the Eden Project Business Breakfast later on this month, next month? I don't know. My calendar's very full. But I've been invited to that, which I will be talking to the head of the tourist board down there, as well as the kind of our local MPs and things. And I'm quite looking forward to talking to them, and I'm hoping that they do approach me to chat about some stuff, because I really, really love Cornwall. If none of you have been, if anyone hasn't been to Cornwall, I highly recommend a good trip. It is absolutely stunning down there. And obviously we rely very, very heavily on tourism. And during the pandemic, it was one of, a lot of businesses' massive fears were, oh my God, what do we do? This is most of our income from the year, and there was no one traveling. It was really quite worrying. I would definitely like to work more with the tourism board. Like I said, I'm looking forward to talking to them because it's a beautiful place. It's absolutely lovely, and I feel very, very fortunate to be able to live there. And yeah, I'm hoping to get some. I did have a company approach me once, but they never replied to my email afterwards. So a bit gutted about that. But hopefully you will see me as a kind of Cornwall person.
Well, maybe after this session we might get some more interest.
Maybe.
But, I know we've only got like a few seconds left. So Erica, I mean, just the last question, really. I mean, how do you actually win customers? I mean, you talked about some of the things that worked for you, and we talked about TikTok and Be Real and things like that. But what other channels work for you? I mean, traditional print advertising, does that work? Television, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, actually, we use all possible channels to reach our target, but we use it in a way that is very innovative, with always in mind the idea of engaging them. So for us, literally, everything is marketing, and like literally an internal email between team members to celebrate a new trip going online, boom, we put it on our social media assets, or we treat out-of-home campaigns as if they're our feed post of Instagram. So we literally interact also offline with our target as if it's an online, let's say, media. So with instant marketing stunts, or like literally contextualizing actual news directly in our feed. Yes, we are a travel brand, but we talk about all the things that are hot for our generations, and we approach a multi-channel strategy, I would say, in this way.
Great. Well, thank you. I think from that session, we've sort of realized that you actually sort of need to talk to these future customers of yours, and perhaps let them take control of your social media channels. And yes, some of the things stay the same. Backpackers, there are still backpackers, but things are changing. Solo travel, you need to be thinking more about LGBTQ plus and your messaging to those audiences. So I hope you found it useful today. Hope you found some really interesting information that you can take back to your office or your home. And I'd just like to ask you to join me in thanking my panelists, Katie Gilson of GWI, Perrin Hooper, and Erica Desanti of We Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.